Chapter 1, the final chapter. I hit publish and flipped off my monitor like it had personally offended me. There. You wanted your stupid wedding night ending, you filthy degenerates? Enjoy. I hope it gives you third-degree cringe burns. My apartment echoed with silence and low self-loathing. The blue glow of the screen was the only witness to my final act as a Hack BL author. Well, technically best-selling Hack BL author. Not that it made me feel any better. I just married off the weakest, most unbearable bottom I'd ever written. Lin Xian, the walking blush sticker, to the male lead Yan Qi, the emotional refrigerator with a knife kink. And people loved it. Fan comment number 1. Yan Qi carrying him out of the palace like a kidnapped kitten? Iconic. Fan comment number 2. I swear. If Lin Xian doesn't cry during the wedding night, I'm suing. I rubbed my temples and groaned into the void. You're all sick. In my defense, I started this story as a joke. A fluff piece to pay rent and buy overpriced bubble tea. But 350 chapters, 40 million views, and one dangerously obsessed reader base later, I was trapped. Trapped by my own gay disaster. And now it was over. Done. Finished. I stood up, stretched, and immediately slipped on the corner of my comforter, cracked my head on the side table, and died like a damn fool. Pain. Then nothing. Then, white. Everywhere. My eyes snapped open. I was lying in a massive silk-covered bed. Canopy bed. With gold embroidery. The sheets smelled faintly of sandalwood and power imbalance. I sat up. My body felt light. My head wrong. Everything was too clear, too vivid. Like I'd gone from Netflix to 4K Ultra Hell. The mirror across the room showed a stranger. No. That wasn't a stranger. That was Lin Xian. Delicate face. Trembling pink lips. Pale skin that screamed, I've never held a weapon or a boundary in my life. Me. I looked down at my hands. Slender, soft, trembling. The kind of hands that get kissed in palace gardens right before the plot forgets your personality for 20 chapters. Nope, I said, out loud, standing abruptly. Bad idea. My knees buckled under silk robes. There were way too many layers. Why did I write this outfit like I was describing a dessert? Why were there pearls on my sleeves? Then I heard it. Footsteps. Marching, deliberate, expensive-sounding boots on marble. The door opened, and there he was. Yan Qi. Tall. Severe. Dark robes, darker eyes. Hair tied back like he could kill someone without getting a strand out of place. The man looked like a villain cosplay with trauma issues. My writing did not do justice to the sheer pressure of his stare. I opened my mouth to speak. Lin Xian. His voice was low, controlled, dangerous. I immediately panicked. Sorry, I squeaked, raising both hands like I was about to be mugged. I'm very delicate. I bruise emotionally and physically. Please don't consummate anything without legal counsel. There was a pause. His brow twitched. You're trembling. That's my survival instinct. Ignore it. He stepped forward. I stepped back. We performed the slow, horrible dance until the backs of my knees hit the bed. Tonight is our wedding night, he said. Oh no. No. I wrote this scene. Fan comment. I need Yan Qi to tower over him like a gothic chandelier. Please. I beg. He was doing exactly that. Towering. Looming. Peering down like I was a puzzle box wrapped in tulle. Think. I widened my eyes, gave a soft gasp, and fainted. Dramatically. Arms splayed. Oscar-worthy. Silence. Then, a low, annoyed sigh. I peeked one eye open. His face was right there, inches from mine. He was checking if I was breathing. Oh God. I could smell his cologne. Masculine. Expensive. Probably called dominance or daddy issues number 5. His eyes narrowed. You're faking. I made a soft whimper noise and flopped harder. No, I'm not. He straightened, turned, walked to the door, spoke to someone outside. Bring the doctor. If he's ill, cancel everything. The door shut behind him. I lay there, sweating through my silk. Okay. So I was in the story, in my own fictional hell, stuck as the bottom I mocked. Married to the man I turned into a red flag parade. But there was one upside. If I wrote myself in, maybe, just maybe, I could write myself out. Fan comment, echoing in my head like a curse. This novel is trash. I love it so much. I'd sell my soul to live in it. Great. Guess I did. Chapter 2, Cold Eyes, Cold Bed. There's nothing more humiliating than lying in bed, pretending to be unconscious, while a palace doctor pokes at your pulse and asks if you've always been this soft. Yes, I'm basically boneless chicken. I muttered weakly. The doctor, bless his ancient soul, only nodded sagely and applied some weird-smelling salve to my temples. It must be nerves, my lord. The wedding, the relocation. Try to rest. You're safe now. Safe. Safe with Yen Qi in the next room, probably sharpening swords and writing his enemies' names in blood calligraphy. I glanced around. The bedroom was massive. Vaulted ceilings, ivory panels, and red silk drapes that whispered imperial dysfunction. There was only one bed. Huge, luxurious, terrifying, because I knew what it was for. I had written it myself in chapter 112. On their wedding night, Yen Qi did not speak. He simply approached Lin Xian like a storm crossing the sea. Inevitable, dark, and drowning in silence. Yeah. That prose? Not so pretty when you're the one about to get drowned. I waited until the doctor shuffled out and the doors sealed shut again. Then I sat up fast and gripped the bedpost like it owed me money. All right, brain. Think. Escape was obviously plan A. The palace was a fortress, but I had to believe there was a back door, a distracted guard, or a really gullible kitchen maid somewhere. I slid off the bed, feet sinking into a ridiculously fluffy rug. My knees nearly gave out from how unfairly weak this body was. Ugh! Lin Xian, you helpless mop. Why didn't I give you any survival stats? I muttered. A polite knock interrupted my plotting. Then came the voice. May I enter? I froze. I knew that voice. Cold and crisp, like water over ice shards. I didn't even have to turn around to know Yen Qi was on the other side of the door. My husband. My violent, emotionally constipated, jealousy-fueled husband. The plotline said he had a slow-burning desire, twisted by control issues. I'd written that exact line after 4 shots of soju and a breakdown over taxes. Now it was coming to kill me with wedding vows. Panicked. Yes, no. Wait, I'm changing. I mean, yes, but don't look directly at me. I'm fragile. I squeaked. The door creaked open anyway, and there he was, tall, imposing, in black robes, trimmed with silver, hair flawless, expression unreadable. The kind of man who looked like a final boss and the tragic backstory all in one. Yen Qi walked in like he owned air. He stopped at the foot of the bed, looked at me like I was a stray cat that had wandered into the war room. Have you eaten? I'm not hungry, I lied. My stomach growled like a traitor. He narrowed his eyes. You collapsed. Now you won't eat. I'm just emotionally allergic to high-pressure environments, I said. He said nothing. We stared at each other for a full 5 seconds. It was the most tense eye contact of my entire life. I could practically hear fan comments buzzing in the back of my skull. Their chemistry is so feral I can't breathe. Yen Qi's silence is hotter than most people's dialogues. I'd let him kill me. I fought the urge to scream. Yen Qi finally spoke. Tonight, you will stay in this room. Cool. Cool, cool, cool. Just to clarify, do I have to be on the bed? He blinked slowly. Where else would you sleep? I don't know. The floor? The bathtub? A nice, neutral third location where we don't accidentally make eye contact in the moonlight. No reaction. Not even a twitch. God, he was handsome in that terrifying, emotionally unavailable way that made my fanbase froth at the mouth. He had the face of a man who drank revenge like wine and filed affection under weakness. He took a step closer. I took a step back. Relax. I'm not going to touch you, he said. My heart did a weird thing, relief and disappointment playing ping-pong with my sanity. He paused, studied me. Not unless you want me to. Nope, definitely don't. Big fan of personal space. A strange tension flickered behind his eyes. Just for a second. Then he turned away, heading to the side room. I'll return later. Lock the door if it helps. The moment he disappeared, I lunged for the bolt and shoved it into place with shaking hands. Then I sat on the bed and buried my face in my hands. What was this? A fever dream? A punishment? A fanfic god's idea of a joke? I stared up at the velvet canopy. One thing was clear. If I wanted to survive Yen Qi, I needed to outright him. Chapter 3. Escape plan trashed here. The first thing I did when the sun rose? Tried to escape, obviously. The second thing? Failed. Spectacularly. Turns out the bride of the Duke doesn't just stroll out the front gate in nightclothes and a hairpin. Especially not when the estate is guarded like a crime scene and I look like a kidnapped porcelain doll with anxiety. And yet I tried. It began at dawn, when I discovered the servants had laid out clothes for me. Thick red robes. Gold embroidery. The exact outfit I wrote for Lin Xian to wear the morning after his wedding night. Romantic. Meaningful. Symbolizing union and eternal loyalty. I'd rather wear a trash bag, I muttered. I yanked on a simpler robe and tucked a roll of sweet buns under my arm like I was smuggling state secrets. I even tied up my hair, shoved slippers on the wrong feet, and marched toward the side corridor like I belonged there. The first guard I passed blinked, looked at me, then bowed. Young Master Lin, are you going somewhere? I smiled. Yes, walk, fresh air, thinking thoughts, about love, and politics, very deep. He frowned. Shall I inform the Duke? No, absolutely not. He's sleeping. I mean busy. Sword stuff. Probably plotting revenge. You know him. I yelped, voice cracking like a pubescent ghost. He didn't move. Panicked. I will scream, I whispered. I beg your pardon? I will scream like the dramatic little bottom I am until the whole estate thinks you've wronged me. He stiffened like I slapped him. Teach, that won't be necessary. Didn't think so. I swanned past him, praying he wouldn't follow. To my surprise, he didn't. Score 1 for emotional blackmail. I made it to the outer garden. Freedom, so close I could taste it. The morning air was cool. The gates, visible past the pond and wall, were open. A cart was being loaded. A servant was distracted. Opportunity. I crouched behind a hedge like an idiot in a drama special. Okay, I whispered to myself. You're the author. You know the estate layout. If you cut left through the orchard, then take the kitchen passage, you'll come out near the back gate. Fan comment buzzed in my skull. Lin Xian's so dumb it's adorable. Like a puppy trying to do algebra. Shut up. I hissed to no one. I bolted across the lawn. Silent. Swift. Like a pigeon in heat. Then I slipped on a wet stone, crashed into a flower cart, knocked over 3 buckets of rosewater, and screamed like a banshee. Guards swarmed before I even finished flailing. Back in the bed. Wet hair. Bruised elbow. Dignity? Deceased. A maid dabbed my forehead. Another gently combed my hair like I was recovering from a fainting spell and not a failed prison break. They were so kind, it made it worse. Oh my God. I've become comic relief in my own story, I muttered. The door opened. Every hair on my body stood at attention. Yen Qi. Dark robes. Cold eyes. Zero patience. He walked in like a silent verdict. Explain, he said. I faked a cough. I heard the roses in the garden were blooming and wanted to see them up close. With my face. At high speed. His jaw tightened. I slipped, I added helpfully. Over a hedge. Into a cart. Very aggressively. Gravity hates me. Silence. That dangerous kind. Then he walked closer, sat on the edge of the bed, and reached out. I flinched. He froze. I'm not going to hurt you. I don't know that you have the emotional range of a haunted statue, I said, voice wobbling. He looked at me and said quietly, You were crying when I came in. Shit, I hadn't realized. I wiped my face. It's a stress thing. Also, maybe the rosewater stung my eyes. He reached for my hand. Paused. Then, against all logic and characterization, he held it gently. Soft. Careful. Like I was glass. I don't like being disobeyed, But I don't want you to fear me, he said. That did not track with how I'd written him. Chapter 64 literally featured him strangling a traitor with silk. Why? I asked. He didn't answer, but his hand tightened slightly around mine. I stared at him, at his face, still unreadable, and I wondered, is he following the script or breaking it? Because that wasn't in the novel. That wasn't the Yen Qi I wrote. And for the first time, I wasn't sure if that was good or terrifying. Chapter 4. Scripted Suffering. There's a moment in every horror story when the protagonist realizes, oh, I'm not getting out of this. I hit that moment while sipping tea with shaking hands, watching Yen Qi speak calmly with his advisors, and knowing exactly what scene was coming next. Because I wrote it, and it was a bad one. The morning after my failed escape attempt, I was summoned to the East Courtyard, the punishment courtyard, if we're being honest. Not a great name. Definitely not a great vibe. Marble floors, cold wind, unnecessary pillars designed for dramatic pacing. Yen Qi sat at the head of a long table, flanked by men in armor. I was seated next to him, awkwardly overdressed, underfed, and one sharp inhale away from a breakdown. I remembered this scene too clearly. Lin Xian is brought to witness justice, to understand the severity of betrayal. That was the line. The line I wrote with smug flair while eating ramen, thinking I was so damn clever. Now, I wanted to punch past me in the throat. I leaned toward Yen Qi, whispering, hey, so, small request. Can we not traumatize the delicate newlywed today? He didn't look at me. You're here to learn. Learn what exactly? The consequences of writing trauma porn for profit. Still no reaction. A man was dragged in, bound, bruised, blood at the mouth. His name was Jian Ru, one of the palace staff. He'd been written as a background character, the one who gets executed for sneaking messages to a rival noble. Except now he had a face. He was real, and I had put his death in bold italics and published it for 80,000 people to like and repost. Wait, I said, standing abruptly. Maybe we don't need to. Yen Qi raised a hand. I flinched. Not from fear, from knowledge. This was exactly how I wrote it. Without a change in expression, Yen Qi gave the order. And he did. Jian Ru didn't beg. He didn't scream. He just looked at me, and smiled. A small, tight smile, like he knew this wasn't about him. Then he died. Sword to the throat. One clean cut. Blood on white marble. My stomach turned. My knees went weak. I grabbed the edge of the table and forced myself not to throw up. I didn't just write pain. I scripted it. I choreographed it to music. And now I was the unwilling lead actor in a play written by a bitter sadist version of myself. Back in the room, I stared at my reflection. Pale, trembling, makeup smudged, silk robes soaked at the hem in red. My own red or his, I couldn't tell. Fan comment pinged in my skull like a knife. This scene was so good. Cold ML supremacy. I pressed the heel of my palm into my forehead until stars danced behind my eyes. Okay, let's face facts. I muttered. 1. I'm in the story. 2. The story is exactly as I wrote it. 3. That means everything bad I plotted is coming for me. 4. I made Lin Xian suffer for 100+ chapters before Yen Qi even started treating him like a human being. I slid down the wall, curling into a ball of regret and misplaced sass. You did this, you idiot. You turned your own trauma dump into a romance plot, and now you're the bottom in the splash zone. I whispered. The door creaked. I jerked up, spine snapping straight. Yen Qi walked in. Slowly. No sword. No guards. Just him. Tall and unshakable. He looked at me. You're angry, he said. You just murdered someone in front of me. He betrayed me. He stole letters, not your soul. He stepped closer. You seem shaken. Do I? Must be the lighting. I laughed short, sharp. He crouched in front of me, eyes level with mine. And for the first time, I saw something flicker there. Not cruelty. Not indifference. Obsession. Pure, cold, coiled possession. You don't need to be afraid. No one will touch you. No one but me, he said softly. The blood drained from my face. That line? I never wrote that line. Chapter 5. Unlocking the obsession route. Something was wrong. Okay, more wrong than usual. It wasn't just the blood-stained courtyard or the fact that I couldn't go 10 steps without a servant bowing like I was royalty with anemia. It was Yen Qi. He was being nice, sort of, in the way a venomous snake might decide not to bite you that day. It started with breakfast. Actual breakfast. Like served to me, personally. I sat in the sunlit solarium, legs tucked neatly under me, staring down at a tray of hand-prepared food. Fresh fruit. Tea at the perfect temperature. Little cloud-shaped buns. Fan comment pinged in my head like a fly buzzing around my trauma. He feeds Lin Xian like a pampered wife. I'm screaming. I wasn't screaming. I was confused. Because Yen Qi, the man who once let a political prisoner starve for 3 days just to watch him squirm, now sat across from me, pouring me tea like a husband playing domestic cosplay. You're not eating, he said. I stared at him. I squinted. Is this drugged? His mouth twitched, the tiniest micro-expression. Almost a smile. Almost. If I wanted to drug you, you wouldn't know, he said. Great. Comforting. I waited until he left to test something. Because there was a pattern here, the same pattern I used in the original plot. The moment Lin Xian tried to flee, Yen Qi's obsession was triggered. Slowly. Visibly. And once it started, it never stopped. And I had done exactly that. Escaped. Disobeyed. Reacted like a frightened pet. Which meant we were no longer in the cold indifference arc. We were entering the obsession route. So naturally, I did what any rational transmigrated author would do. I decided to push it. I found a target in the estate's training yard. Li Wei, a sword instructor with minimal plot importance and maximum jawline. He had a 2-chapter flirtation with Lin Xian in the original version before being stabbed by Yen Qi out of possessive misunderstanding. I found him adjusting a student's stance, all broad shoulders and sunshine. The second he looked over, I smiled. A big one. Hello. Is it true you're the best swordsman here? I said. He blinked. That's flattering, your grace, but I don't. Call me Xian, no need for titles. We're all friends here, right? I said. He blushed. Full on. Like an anime character. Excellent. I leaned in. Can you teach me how to fight? Just a little. Enough to, stab a ghost or something? He hesitated. Is this permitted? Who's going to stop me? The answer arrived 3 seconds later. In the form of a shadow slicing through sunlight. Of silence stretching across the yard like a blade. Yen Qi. I didn't hear him come in. No one did. One moment we were breathing. The next, the air tightened. Yen Qi stood behind me. Eyes locked on Li Wei like he was already dead. I turned slowly. Hi, look, I said. Leave, he said. It wasn't a request. Li Wei bowed so fast he nearly fell over. Of course, your grace. I meant no offense. I said leave. Li Wei sprinted. I turned back to Yen Qi and raised my hands. Okay, I know what it looked like. Do you think I'm blind? He said, voice soft and sharp. No, but I think you're a little dramatic. His jaw clenched. He stepped closer. Close enough that I could feel the heat coming off him. His presence wasn't just intense. It was magnetic. Dangerous. Pulling. You were flirting. It was a social experiment. You were smiling. So? I smile at squirrels. Doesn't mean I want to marry one. You want him to touch you? I want a damn sword lesson. He exhaled. Sharp. Controlled. Then something shifted. His fingers brushed my wrist. Not roughly, but firm enough to make me freeze. I don't want anyone else touching you, he said. Quiet. But each word landed like a pin on glass. I stared at him. That line was supposed to come in chapter 46, after weeks of build-up. Not now. I never moved it forward. I never typed it this early, which meant he was improvising, breaking the script, reacting to me. Later that night, I sat alone on the edge of the bed, knees hugged to my chest, staring at the moonlit window. I whispered into the quiet. I think he's getting worse. And the worst part? So was I. Because a small, traitorous part of me had liked it. The look in his eyes. The way his voice dropped when he said mine. I curled tighter. Oh God. I'm going to fall for him, aren't I? Chapter 6. Flirting with your own code. There's a difference between a man being protective and a man being territorial. One is romantic. The other is what Yan Qi was doing, which was, let's say, emotionally threatening with a smile. It all started because I made the mistake of looking decent. I didn't even try. I woke up, refused 3 servants' offers to bathe me like a Victorian orphan, and threw on a simple blue robe with silver embroidery. No makeup, no hairpin, no fan service. And yet when I walked past a mirror, I froze. Oh no, I whispered, because this body, Lin Xian's body, didn't know how to look average. I looked like a period drama dream. Soft cheeks, long lashes, robe slipping off one shoulder like I was sponsored by longing. I tugged it back into place. Not today, fan service goblin, I muttered. But the universe, much like my fan base, doesn't understand boundaries. Yan Qi had summoned me to attend a court lunch. Important, political, very public. He didn't say why, just that I should sit beside him and watch, which, given his usual idea of performance art, made me very nervous. So I showed up late. On purpose. Maybe a little petty. Okay, extremely petty. The courtyard was gorgeous. Cherry blossoms falling like a live-action filter. Nobles chatting over porcelain cups. Robes fluttering like banners. All very elegant. Until I walked in. The conversation stopped like someone had slapped the mute button. I felt every stare like a pin. Some curious. Some amused. Some lingering. One man in particular, tall, golden-robed, smile like a practiced sin, stepped forward. Zhaoshan, minor noble, background character, one-time antagonist, described in my notes as harmless but flirty, mostly filler. He bowed low. Duke Yen, I see your consort has finally arrived. The sunlight's been missing him. I forced a smile. How poetic. Do you practice that in the mirror or just naturally drip with cheese? Some nobles laughed. Soft, respectful, trying not to die. Zhaoshan stepped closer. Would you care to sit beside me, Consort Lin? The view is better. Yan Qi said nothing. I felt the air tighten. Ah, how generous. But I'd hate to deprive his grace of his daily serving of stress. I said quickly. I made my way to Yan Qi's side and sat without waiting to be offered a cushion. I didn't look at him. He didn't speak. But the silence wrapped around my throat like a leash. The lunch went on. People talked. They gossiped politely. I picked at my food, fully aware that Zhaoshan was still looking at me. Every few minutes he'd chuckle at nothing and glance over like I was in on a private joke. Yan Qi's wine cup cracked in his hand. Not shattered. Just a hairline fracture. But I saw it. And so did Zhaoshan. Fan comment buzzed uninvited into my brain. God. I love when the ML gets unhinged jealous. Nothing hits harder than quiet rage. Yeah. Well, it hits harder when you're within strangling distance. When the meal ended and people began rising, Zhaoshan took his chance. He approached, quick and smiling. May I escort you back, Consort Lin? No, thank you, I said immediately, standing. He reached for my arm anyway. Polite, suggestive, not touching but close, which was exactly when Yan Qi moved. He didn't yell. He didn't speak. He was just suddenly there, between us. His hand gripped Zhaoshan's wrist. Tight, too tight. Zhaoshan's eyes widened, more confused than afraid. Your Grace, I meant no disres. Snap. It wasn't a bone. Not quite. But the sound still made my stomach drop. Yan Qi let go slowly. Next time, don't reach for what isn't yours, he said, voice silk over steel. Zhaoshan staggered back, holding his hand. I'm fine, he didn't touch me. It's not a big deal. I lied quickly, trying to smooth it over. Yan Qi turned to me. His expression was blank. But his eyes, I felt it. Right then. The shift. The click of something locking into place. He wasn't acting out a script anymore. He was marking territory. And I wasn't just a consort. I was his trigger. Later that evening, I sat at the window alone, replaying it all in my head. I whispered, "That wasn't in the story." And for once, no fan comments echoed back. Just silence. Just me, realizing the game had changed and the story I wrote wasn't mine anymore. Chapter 7. Obsession.exe loading. I always thought obsession in stories was hot, in fiction, where it's dramatic and sexy and safely removed by a screen and 1,000 likes. But when it's real, when the man who loves you is also capable of crushing bones with a smile, it's not hot, it's claustrophobic. 3 things happened after the court lunch disaster. Zhao Shen disappeared. I wasn't allowed to leave the estate. My bedroom door stopped locking from the inside. I noticed that last one immediately. The bolt? Gone. The latch? Smoothed over like it was never installed. Like the universe itself decided I was no longer allowed privacy. I stood there with my mouth half open, one hand on where the lock should have been. "Oh, no!" I stormed, floated in silk-clad rage, down the hall and found Yan Qi reading in his private study. Like nothing had happened. Like we didn't live in a growing vortex of emotional control and insane romantic tension. "You removed the lock on my door," I said. He didn't look up. "Yes." "Why?" "You're not a prisoner," he said calmly. "I was locking people out, not myself in." That made him pause. He set his brush down. Finally met my eyes. "I told you, no one else touches you. No one else enters your space. That includes guards, servants, stray nobles, anyone," he said. "That includes me, you overprotective maniac." He stood. Not fast. Not angry. Just deliberately. That was worse. He crossed the space between us with the kind of slow, confident stride I knew would be described in the fan comments as ML mode activated. But I didn't feel like swooning. I felt like I was standing in a glass box while someone etched my name into the walls from the inside. He stopped in front of me. "Do you want someone else?" he asked quietly. And God help me, I heard it. The edge in his voice. The way the words didn't just sound curious, they sounded dangerous. Like the answer could decide someone's fate. "Why do you always jump straight to murder as foreplay?" I muttered. He didn't smile. "I'm serious, Xian." I looked at him. At this man who used to be lines in a draft, nothing more than code and cruelty and the occasional shirtless fan art, and I realized something awful. He was scared. Not much. Just a flicker. But it was real. And worse? It made him worse. Obsessive characters always escalate when they feel unstable. And I had made him unstable. "No, I don't want anyone else," I said, voice soft. He exhaled. Shoulders loosened. For a second, he looked almost human. Then he said, "Good. Then there's no reason to leave this estate again." "Excuse me. I've informed the outer gates. You don't need to go outside. Everything you want will be brought to you." "Yan Qi, that is not how marriage works. This isn't marriage. This is you and me. Everything else is irrelevant," he said. I opened my mouth, closed it, then opened it again just to say, "What the actual?" But he was already gone. Just like that. Discussion over. Decision made. Later that night, I tested the estate boundaries. I made it halfway to the back gardens before I was intercepted. Not by a guard. By a servant girl, trembling, eyes wide. "I'm sorry, Consort Lin, but the Duke said," he said, "if I let you wander again, I'd be replaced." She said. Her voice broke on that word. Replaced. In this world, that meant disappeared. I walked back in silence. I lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling. And for the first time, I realized I was still writing the story. Not with words. With actions. Every time I pushed, he pulled harder. Every time I tried to breathe, he sealed the windows. I wasn't a character anymore. I was the plot device. The anchor. The thing he couldn't let go of, because if he did, he'd collapse. And somewhere deep down, a terrifying part of me liked it. Liked being the center of his universe. Even if it was slowly becoming a cage. Chapter 8. The Jealousy Event. When I wrote the Imperial Spring Ball, I thought it was classy. A grand, glittering social event. Drama, elegance, a chance to showcase politics and power and, well, vibes. In my mind, it was where Lin Xian would be shown off like a new royal accessory, and Yan Qi would do the classic possessive arm around the waist maneuver while glaring at anyone who so much as breathed in his direction. Cute, right? Wrong. So wrong. Because now I was in it, wearing 6 layers of embroidered silk, with my hair done up in pearls and my skin powdered to glowing submission. I looked like a prize, which apparently was the whole point. Why am I here? I asked Yan Qi as our carriage rattled toward the palace. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he adjusted my sleeve, a casual, intimate gesture, like I was a wind-up doll he wanted properly presented. You're mine, they need to see that, he said. So you brought me to the biggest political event of the season to claim your property? His gaze cut to mine. You brought attention. I'm correcting it. Translation. I flirted with a side character 2 chapters ago, and now he's going to mark me like a jealous wolf on public record. I gritted my teeth. This isn't a correction. This is a flex. I don't flex, I end speculation, he said calmly. The palace ballroom was stunning. Crystalline chandeliers, white marble floors, musicians playing like they were paid in divine favor. Every eye turned when we entered, and I mean every eye, like some overly dramatic wind blew through the room, parting nobles like waves. Yan Qi didn't just walk beside me, he guided me, hand at my back. Possessive, subtle only if you didn't know him. He leaned in, whispered near my ear, "Stay close." "I don't have a choice," I muttered. Things spiraled when Prince Ren appeared. Tall, beautiful, tragic smile. One of those side characters with fan-favorite energy. He was meant to be a one-time flirtation. The what-if in Lin Xian's story. A reminder that affection could come from gentleness, not force. Fan comment, once upon a time. Prince Ren is such a soft boy. Yan Qi could never. Yeah. That comment might have cursed me, because Prince Ren approached me with that smile, the soft one. The one I gave him when I wrote his character as Hope in silk robes. "Consort Lin, you shine brighter than the lanterns tonight," he said, bowing. I tried to smile politely. "Flatterer, would you grant me the honor of one dance?" Cue silence. Not just around us. Everywhere. My spine locked, because I could feel him behind me. Yan Qi. Heavy. Cold. Silent. Prince Ren extended a hand. I didn't take it. I didn't even breathe. But that didn't matter, because Yan Qi moved. It happened in less than a blink. Suddenly, I was off the floor, lifted cleanly bridal style into the air. My robes swished. A gasp rippled across the ballroom like a wind chime dropped in a temple. I was being carried. Like a bride. Like a warning. I looked up at him, stunned, embarrassed, borderline feral, and hissed, "Are you kidding me?" He didn't answer. Didn't need to, because his arms were iron and his eyes were locked on Prince Ren like the man had tried to touch a live wire. I buried my face in his shoulder. "Put me down." "No." Yan Qi. He looked down at me then. Not furious. Not smug. Just possessive. The ballroom doors opened for him like he was parting the world. Nobles stepped back like waves in a storm. He carried me out like he was done pretending I was anything less than his. Back at the estate, he finally put me down. Gently. Too gently. Like I might break. I didn't speak. Couldn't. My ears were still ringing with whispers. My face still burned. "You embarrassed me," I said finally, voice low. "No, they would have embarrassed you." I stopped it. He replied, "You humiliated me." He stepped closer. "I warned them. I'm not a sword you flash at rivals." He cut me off. "You're mine." I flinched. Not at the words. At how sure he was. And at how something inside me didn't hate hearing it. I hated that most of all. That night I couldn't sleep. Not because of the noise, but because I couldn't stop replaying it. The eyes. The carrying. The way he looked at me like nothing else existed. I touched my lips. They hadn't kissed. Not yet. but the silence between us felt heavier than skin. And I realized something I hadn't written. Yanqi had never danced, but he still knew how to make the whole world watch when he touched me. Chapter 9. Bedroom bound. The door shut with a soft click. Not a slam, not a lock, but somehow it sounded louder than a gunshot. I stood in the center of the master suite, my hands cold, silk robes heavier than armor. Yanqi stood by the window. Moonlight kissed the side of his face. Sharp jaw, unreadable gaze, back straight like he'd been carved from law and vengeance. This was the scene. The scene. The one readers waited 130 chapters for. On the night after the imperial ball, Lin Xian is finally claimed. That's what I wrote. And now I was standing in it, knees shaky, stuck in a moment I created and regretted. I tried to speak. My voice came out cracked. Are we really doing this? Yanqi turned, walked toward me. Slow, deliberate, like a man approaching a promise he's waited years to fulfill. I took a step back. No, stop. You don't have to. He didn't touch me. Not yet. But his voice was quiet when he spoke. I saw the way they looked at you tonight. I blinked. And I know what they think. That you're soft. That you'll smile for anyone. That you're lonely enough to reach for another hand if it's offered. I wanted to snap at him. I wanted to say, then maybe don't treat me like a possession with hair ornaments. But my throat didn't work. My feet wouldn't move. He stepped closer, now inches away. I'm not going to force you, but I am going to make something clear, he said. His hand came up, slow, tentative, and touched my jaw. Not rough, not gentle either, like he wasn't sure how much pressure I'd take before cracking. You're mine, and I'll wait, but I won't share. He whispered. My breath hitched. That wasn't in the script. None of this was. In the original novel, this is where he pressed me into the bed and branded me with bruises, the beginning of the turning point where pain became affection. But this was worse, because now I had to choose. And the part of me that still thought like a writer, it knew what choice would sell, what choice would make sense. Let him touch me. Let it happen. Lean in. Surrender. I opened my mouth. But then I looked at him, and I saw it. The thing no one ever commented on. The thing I didn't even write properly. Fear. Buried under every cold word. Every sharp glance. He was terrified. Not of me. Not of failure. Of rejection. Because if I said no, if I turned away, he wouldn't get angry. He'd shatter. Like glass too hard for its own shape. I took a shaky breath. Reached up. Took his hand in mine. And said, You're not the only one who's scared, Yanqi. He stilled. I don't know how to be wanted like this. Not when it's real. I whispered. He looked at me. Something inside him eased just slightly. He leaned down slowly and pressed his forehead to mine. We stood there, not kissing. Not touching beyond hands and breath and closeness. And somehow that was more intimate than any claiming scene I ever wrote. Later, I lay awake beside him. Still clothed. Still untouched. But the tension between us? Unbearable. I could feel it in the space where his hand almost touched mine under the covers. He didn't move. I didn't either. We were gravity and choice and fear wrapped in silence. Just kiss already. If he doesn't pin him down by next chapter, I'm rioting. Yanqi is too soft now. I want pain. The fan comments echoed in my skull. Crueler now than ever. I curled up tighter. Let them riot. Because this story wasn't theirs anymore. And neither was I. Chapter 10. Snap point. You know what's scarier than a man who wants to hurt you? A man who wants to keep you so badly he might hurt himself to do it. It started with silence. Not tension. Not glares. Not looming threats or doors slamming. Just a calm, polished, terrifying silence. Yanqi stopped speaking to anyone that wasn't me. Ministers, advisors, guards. He dismissed them all like they were background noise in a scene that no longer mattered. Because in his eyes, I was the only character left. I noticed it during breakfast. The room was too quiet. No footsteps in the hall. No servers. Just porcelain and tea and him, sitting across from me like a man barely holding the leash on his own mind. Are we alone? Did everyone die? I asked, glancing at the untouched plates. They're not needed. Define needed. Like, in the logistical sense, not the emotionally codependent one. He looked up, eyes dark and calm. You're the only one who matters here. I opened my mouth, closed it, tried again. You can't just erase the world because you're scared of losing me. His jaw twitched. I'm not scared. Then what is this? I snapped. Because this feels less like romance and more like a slow, beautifully lit kidnapping. He stood. I flinched before I could stop myself. That was the worst part. I didn't think he'd hurt me. Not really. But I didn't trust what he'd do to everyone else. I retreated to the study after that. Needed space. Distance. There was a window seat, the kind I wrote into scenes where Lin Xian cried about feelings while looking wistfully at the moon. I collapsed into it and stared out, searching for a world I was no longer sure existed. That's when I heard it. Footsteps. Soft. Measured. Not Yen Qi. I turned. A servant girl entered, nervous, shaking, clearly terrified. My lord, forgive me. I came to ask if you need anything. Anything at all. She said softly. Human contact. A contact. Some kind of normalcy. I nodded once. Water. She moved to pour it. But the door slammed open before the cup hit the table. Yen Qi. Silent. Cold. Eyes locked on her like she'd trespassed on sacred ground. She dropped the pitcher. It shattered. She fell to her knees. I'm sorry, Your Grace. I asked her to come. This isn't her fault, I said quickly. She looked at you, she spoke to you, he said. I felt a chill crawl up my spine. You told the entire household not to talk to me? His silence was answer enough. I stepped between them. She didn't do anything wrong. I'm asking you to let her go. His eyes flicked to her, back to me, and then he said it. If I say yes, will you stay? I stopped breathing. What? His voice dropped to a whisper. If I promise not to touch her, not to punish her, will you stay here with me? Will you stop trying to escape? It wasn't a question. It was a trade. A desperate, furious, breaking trade. I turned to the girl. Go. Now. She fled without looking back. I turned back to him. Slowly. You're spiraling, I said. I'm adjusting. No. You're unraveling. I see it. The cracks. You're not even pretending to be sane. He stepped closer. Not fast. Just enough to trap the air between us. You're right, he said. That scared me more than anything else. He cupped my face. Gently, gently. Like I was something holy. I was never sane. Not from the beginning. He whispered. I tried to pull back. He didn't stop me. Didn't have to. Because I didn't get far. I froze. Not because he held me, because of what I felt when he touched me. The truth. His hand wasn't shaking. Mine was. And I knew, deep in the part of me that still thought like a writer, that this was the moment. The snap point. The timeline had broken. The story was bleeding into something else. Not a romance. Not a tragedy. Something in between. I looked into his eyes. You'll destroy everything for me? I whispered. He didn't blink. I already have. Chapter 11. Rewrite me. There are rules in transmigration fiction. Unwritten ones. But universal. Rule 1. If you wrote the world, you can manipulate it. Rule 2. If you fall in love with your own creation, you're already doomed. I'd broken both. I waited until Yen Qi left. He had business at the Northern Watchtower, which was code for trying not to smother me with his obsession for 12 straight hours. The moment he was gone, I locked myself in the library. Then I whispered the command I hadn't said in weeks. Author note. Access plotline override. And it appeared. The glowing, golden script across the air. The narrative thread, tethered to my consciousness. Like a living manuscript, tangled in fate and metaphor. But something was wrong. The words shifted, phrases blurred, scenes warped. Original plotline. Final confrontation at Moon Bridge. Outcome. Lin Xian dies to protect Yan Qi from assassination. Trigger. Chapter 142. No, no, no. That's not what I wrote. In my version, Lin Xian never died. He left. He escaped. That was the arc. Freedom. A bitter ending, yes, but one where he survived. I opened the next node. The override blinked. Do you still hate him? I froze. What? No cursor. No prompt. Just the question. Do you still hate him? I backed away from the script. This wasn't supposed to be part of it. There was no emotion check in the override. No moral gatekeeping. I was the writer. I controlled this world. I clenched my fists. Yes, of course I do. I whispered. But the words didn't change. They didn't believe me. If you do not hate him, you must stay. Rewrite denied. I slammed the air with both hands, trying to force it back open. The script flickered, error messages blooming like red veins through golden code. System error. Author intent compromised. Narrative integrity breached. You are no longer the only author. No. No, no, what does that mean? But I already knew. It meant the story had outgrown me. Why I kept looking at him like he was a disaster I might still learn to love. I stood. I have a way out, I said quietly. He closed his eyes. I figured. I can leave, wipe everything. Save myself. I went on. Do it. That stunned me. What? Do it if it means you live. If it means I don't have to watch you die. He said again. I couldn't speak. Not because he gave me permission, but because he meant it. He meant it. He would let me go. Even if it broke him. Even if it killed him. Even if he never healed from it. That was love. Wasn't it? The real kind. Not the obsessive, fanservice-driven fantasy I wrote. Not the scripted passion. But this choosing someone else's life over your own heart. And suddenly I knew. Couldn't go back. Not because I was trapped. But because if I left now, I would never stop wondering what we could have been if I had stayed. Not as Lin Xian. Not as a character. But as myself. The golden script blinked one last time. Confirm rewrite? My hand hovered over the word. Then I whispered, yes, and rewrote the ending with my own hand. When I looked up, Yan Qi was staring at me. What did you do? He asked. I stayed, I said. He fell to his knees, like he couldn't stand under the weight of it. And I knelt with him. I'm not the person you think I am, but I want to learn to be. I whispered. He didn't speak, didn't move. He just pulled me into his arms and held me like I was the last prayer in a dying god's mouth. Chapter 14, Trash Ending Rewritten. The story didn't end in fire. Not in blood, or heartbreak, or heroic sacrifice. It ended on a quiet morning. With warm hands. With porridge that didn't taste like duty. With peace, the kind I'd never written because I thought tension sold better than contentment. The palace had changed. Not outwardly. The halls were still too long, the ceilings too high, the servants too quiet. But the air had softened. No more locked doors. No more guards posted outside my window. No more rules built from fear. And Yan Qi, he had changed too. Not in the way stories usually show it. No sudden personality shift. No redemption monologue. Just smaller things. Like how he asked before touching me now. Like how he didn't flinch when I disagreed with him in front of others. Like how he looked at me like I was real, not a role, not a weakness, not a ghost of his own obsession. Just me, Lin Xian. I rewrote the last chapter, I said one morning, as we sat by the koi pond. Our legs were tangled, our tea untouched. Yan Qi didn't speak, so I went on. I took out the tragic ending, the death, the sacrifice. I replaced it with a choice. What kind of choice? He asked softly. I turned to him. To stay. To love. Even when it's not easy. Even when it hurts. His gaze lowered. Does it still hurt? Yes, I said. But that's what makes it real. Sometimes he still woke up shaking. Sweat on his skin. My name on his lips. In those moments I held him the way he once held me. Like an anchor. Still here, not leaving. I'd whisper. And slowly he started to believe it. A fan comment used to echo in my head every time I tried to rest. God, I hope Lin Xian dies dramatically. It would be so poetic. Now that line just made me smile. Because I didn't die. I lived. And I learned that surviving the plot wasn't the endgame. Choosing to love someone who was written to destroy you, and watching them choose you back. That's the real rewrite. On the last day of spring, he surprised me. We stood beneath the cherry blossoms, petals falling like paper promises. Yan Qi reached into his robe and held out a folded slip of parchment. I opened it. It was the first page of the new story, the one I never thought I'd get to write. There were only 5 words, scrawled in messy, unpracticed handwriting. Tell me how it ends. I looked at him, then I smiled, and said, let's find out together.